Hello and welcome to the Funky Flow YouTube audiolog for Steven Universe. That's the new name of the week. I think going forward, it's just going to have a different name every week. And this week it's called Funky Flow, for obvious reasons. I'm not sure what to take from your silence. This week we are talking.
That's good. I liked it. I chuckled.
Okay,
just silently.
Just to yourself. This week we're talking about Bubble Buddies, an episode I'm very fond of Steven Universe. It introduces the character of Connie. So basically, Steven is trying to ride his bike on the beach and thinking that's a bit weird, but it turns out he's mostly doing it to sort of catch the attention of someone on the beach. There's this very adorable moment where the gems say, "Oh, you like her," and basically Steven's like, "I like everyone." Like, it's so innocent, such a brilliant moment for the character. And basically he tries to meet Connie, but he can't put up the courage, but eventually there's an earthquake and some rocks from a nearby cliff sort of about to fall on her, and he jumps in, and his gem creates a bubble force field around them, which traps them both in it because he doesn't know how to turn it off. The rest of the episode is spent with them trying to sort of find various comical ways to escape the bubble until the source of the earthquake makes itself known, and it's this big giant monster which Steven sort of outsmarts. So yeah, that's pretty much the crux of the episode, so for those of you who don't remember. As always, jumping straight to Chris's thoughts, because last week, Chris, not so fond of the episode. So I'm hoping, praying, that you enjoyed this one a lot more.
Why, Dan, didn't he shapeshift his finger into a knife? Try and burst a bubble that way? No, I'm joking. Of course he doesn't. He's not that in control of his powers. I am, of course, being sarcastic.
Gotcha.
I preferred this episode a lot more. I enjoyed it. I chuckled when they fell down. I chuckled when they went into the sea for some reason, because I genuinely thought, I don't know how they get out of this. Like there was a genuine moment of like, oh well, this is a shitstorm of a situation.
Yeah, and it just gets worse. My favorite gag in the episode is a sight gag. It's a 2-part gag. The first part is when they first meet Onion, and he draws a complicated diagram, and he doesn't understand, and she literally writes harpoon, and he understands and gives him a thumbs up. And then when he fires the harpoon, when it bounces off the bubble and immediately takes the ship out,
yes,
I was in stitches. The timing on that is perfect. For so many reasons. It was
very funny throughout. It was very sweet. There was a monster. It was nice to see a combination of both Steven's gem powers working randomly and that helping them, because obviously that's what stops, which I think gets forgotten pretty quickly. Like, the bubble becomes a problem, but fundamentally did save their lives. So like, you have the gem power doing something random, but then you have him getting out of the situation, because it's not great to always have him get out of the situation by accident. Like, he genuinely outsmarts it, not in a way that requires his powers.
Absolutely.
So it's just him being a smart kid, which is a nicer way, which is in my opinion, and I get that you can't do it every week, but in my opinion, that's the ideal way for Steven to get out of a scrape.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think because it shows that, because it's like he's, I mean, they say it in this episode, she's like, he goes, "I'm magic, well, half magic on my mom's side," and that line clears it, like, says it all. Like those powers of his are not all Steven relies on. They're not what makes him unique. They're not what makes him Steven. You know, they don't define him in a weird way, which they kind of do with the other gems in some way or another. So I really like that about this episode, because it does demonstrate the human part of Steven is just as capable as the gem part of Steven. And while you're right, they can't do it every week, because then that will become tiresome. And also you'd start to think, what's the point in having gems if a person can keep solving these problems? But it is nice to see that he can also problem solve that way and get out of scrapes that way as well, because I think that shows that he's, generally speaking, quite a smart kid. I'm a big fan of this one. Particularly, what do you think to Connie? I know you didn't get a lot of Connie in this episode, but the bit you did get.
I liked her. I thought they weren't. The writing of the character wasn't overly subtle on the she's lonely points. Like, I mean, they hammered that home.
Yeah, they really did.
I get that it's a kid's show and stuff, so fine. But
yeah, the show has been subtler about other things, so
yes,
you're right to be concerned that was very on the nose. I'll agree with that.
Yes, incredibly so. But as a character, she was written nicely. Otherwise she was written nicely. And was engaging and quite a nice. You felt that she was genuinely fond of Stephen, although it was a bit like, I'm having a horrible time, we're going to suffocate. This is awful. I can be your friend. Oh, don't worry, I'm having fun. All right. 360 that situation, didn't you? But yeah.
Well, I like to think that the glow stick thing sort of, because it does feel like that, but when you think back through it, like she has the thought about like it being not fun, and then he mentions that he could be a friend, and then he shows her the glow stick, and then they have the flashbacks to when they first bumped into each other, and then it's sort of like in that time talking about the past, she's sort of cheered up like a space of time. Yeah. You're right though, when you lay it out, it does make her seem like slightly unhinged, slightly bipolar.
Yeah. I also don't really know why. I think although I liked it being completely Stephen's resolution, I kind of think have him tie up because did the monster blow up because it tangled itself, or did the one who's not Pearl or Aphesis, the other one, did
Garnet.
She shoot a gem at him? Because she picked up a gem from the dust.
So to explain this in some, just to expand on a point I sort of hinted at last week, and again, this is slightly spoiler territory in that it's stuff that we clarify in the future, but you can pretty much figure out at this point. I mentioned that the gems don't have physical form in the same way humans do. It all comes from the gems, like bent light, basically. That creature is like that too. And when basically he tangled it up, and when it tried to escape, it pulled the pillar out that kept that boardwalk up, and it collapsed on him, and that's what made him sort of poof back into his gem. So when you see Garnet, that she's grabbing the gem that is the source of that creature's existence, and she sort of bobbled it and made it go away.
Right.
And
Which is a shame, because he's just under the sea, not harming anyone till.
Well, I mean, he does try to attack them for being, for just having a shiny thing on them. To be fair.
Yeah, but I mean, they could have chucked. Otherwise, he's just under the sea chilling out. Like,
well, I assume
they could have chosen to chuck the shiny thing away.
Do you not think they kind of hinted he was the source of the earthquakes?
Oh yeah, that's true.
But I will say as well that like that's actually a concept they deal with in this show. At some point they do get to the morality of what they're actually doing with these monsters that are these living things that they keep sort of essentially capturing. It's hard to explain. I don't want to go into it. But there are some episodes that deal with the morality of that, and they're brilliantly done. Actually, there's some really good stuff that the show sort of gets to, if that makes sense.
Well, I can, I definitely enjoyed this one more.
Yeah, I mean, where on the scale so far? One of the top ones, or are you still thinking you liked some of the other stuff better? What's...
No. It was probably one of the top, one up there with the early Dad one, and the other one I really liked. Yeah, because it was a nice balance of because it's weird, because I like the monsters, partly because it's kind of like, well, it's a fucking kids show and it's animated, so let's have some monsters. But sure. I don't love it when it's all about the monsters and they're stupid. So to have a balance of a human problem, some human issues, and a monster at the end to be a bit of an antagonist, I quite like that. So I rate it highly.
That's good. That is good. I'm glad you liked this one better. I do think that, and I said this last week, I do think that sort of Bubble Buddies, not Bubble Buddies, Cat Fingers is an exception rather than the rule in terms of its tone and
I would have said that as well, because I wasn't so angry at any other episode except potentially the first one, where even that one I wasn't as angry as that. Yeah.
I mean, it's weird for me because this week a brand new episode aired of Steven Universe, and this is unprecedented because we do a podcast like this for Fringe, where we're going back and watching an episode of Fringe, but Fringe ended a long time ago. Steven Universe is still going. It's conceivable at some point we may catch up. Probably not before Cartoon Network cancelled the fucking thing though. But anyway, there's an episode that aired this week in sort of current Steven universe called Storm in the Room that, like, I was watching it and it's so weird to be doing this and watching the episodes as they go out, because when I compare the sort of problems Steven was dealing with here to the weight of some of the stuff that's happening in the more recent episodes, it's so jarring. So jarring. I mean, if you compare the premise of the first episode, which is they've stopped selling his favourite kind of ice cream, to the premise of Storm in the Room, which I won't give away here, but holy fuck. I mean, I believe many tears were shed over that episode, and it's heartbreaking and it's very emotional, and Steven's having to deal with some really complex thoughts. It really does show the growth, and it's evident more than ever for me how this show evolves. Now I'm watching them alongside each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And again, I think I say this every week, but I'm so excited to get through some of this stuff with you, because there's some really good stuff coming up.
There's some meat.
Yeah, there's some real meat coming. Like I said, there's a few favourites of mine coming up in this next sort of run. The next episode that's coming up is called Serious Steven. You know, Serious Steven. And before we go any further, I've got to say as well, did you notice this week, Chris? No food.
Yeah, very true.
No reference to food whatsoever.
Yeah.
Possibly for the first week since it started.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Which is good. I'm glad they're moving away from that.
Although I do love that they've brought back the whole the bits bit like 3 or 4 times now.
Yeah.
That's a good running joke, I think. So I think have we talked ourselves out? Are we done?
Yeah, I think we have. I think last week's was a bit of a bumper one, so I think this is a good clean SU fiery fluff podcast. Whatever it's called, I can't remember what.
Yeah, what was it called? Oh yeah, because he had free. What was it? What was his funky flow?
Funky flow.
Because at the beginning he said he didn't want anybody to get in the way of his funky flow.
And I really liked. I don't know her name,
Garnet.
but the
Garnet, the big one.
Garnet. I really liked her understanding of that and her determination to give him some space and peace. And I thought that was a really great character bit for her.
Garnet is a fan favourite, and you'll learn why as you go through it. But her sort of, she's stern but soft-hearted, and that's kind of it's a really interesting combination. It's characteristics you wouldn't put together normally. You would think someone as sort of tough and stoic as her would be equally sort of hard and tough when it comes to sort of emotional things, but she's very in tune with her emotional side, and very soft-hearted and kind-hearted, and that makes her a very interesting character, I think, because it's not a contradiction, but it feels like one, so it makes her interesting.
Yeah, it was very nicely done.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's really good. So there you go. So that was Bubble Buddies. We'll be back next week to talk about Serious Steven.